The chime pulls you from sleep, a soft tri-harmonic chord rippling from hidden speakers. It is a sound that soothes rather than startles, but your pulse still spikes for a moment, a reflex from a youth spent in klaxons, sirens, and screams. You blink, fully awake now, palming the release pad as you stir. Leaving the pod requires a specific, practiced contortion. These sleeping pods are a masterwork of spatial efficiency, but the Earthcast architects clearly designed them with a one-size-fits-most mentality that has not yet accounted for the human form that now finds itself occupying many. You shimmy out, dragging your legs over the lip of the opening until your soles find the warm surface of the hex-plated deck. You stand and stretch. The wall ahead is a curved honeycomb of identical pods, each stacked a dozen high and slotted together without visible seam. The deck vibrates gently against your bare feet, humming with the synchronized sleep cycles of 1,000 other unaccompanied laborers. You are all deep in the colony's gut, stored like ammunition, waiting for the rotation schedule to click over. Rubbing the sleep from your eyes, you join the stream of bodies moving toward the hygiene station. Scores of others drift from their own pods in yellow, patterned body gloves. It is crowded, but somehow quiet. There are no crying infants here, no romantic whispers or domestic disputes. Only the muted shuffles and casual greetings of a newly inducted workforce so far unencumbered by kin bonds, and as such awarded simple accommodation to suit. The loudest noise is the gentle, soothing ambient chime still looping through the speakers above. The hygiene station is lined with rows of individual sanitation capsules, sleek oval pillars of moulded white resin. You find an open unit and wave a hand. The curved door slides shut behind you, sealing you in a private soundproof cylinder of white light. You strip and tap the activation rune. Water hits you instantly, hot, clean, and tasting faintly of salts and minerals. You grab the emulsion bar and scrub. The lather tingles, dissolving the stubble on your body, face, and scalp into a thick, grey slurry. You nudge the last stubborn clumps down the drain with your heel, then trigger the dryers, spinning slowly as the thermal blast strips the moisture from your skin. You bring forward a mirror. The scars of your old life, the burns, the discolorations, the calluses, these are fading, smoothed away by almost magical medical gels and ointments. But the new marks are clear. You pick up an open pigment pot. You trace the symbols and patterns tattooed into your skin, deepening the blue, reaffirming the geometry of your new loyalty. As you finish, you notice your hand trembling. You freeze. You catch your own gaze in the reflection and recite the mantra drilled into you during the 80 cycles of integration. The jagged stone breaks the plough. Be the soil, yield, and be fruitful. You repeat this until the tremor in your hand stops and your back straightens. You put the pot away. Dressed and groomed, you step out and join the lines for the Intrasphere tram, a spine of white alloy waiting to transport assignees to the surface. As you shuffle forward, canteens and lunchboxes are issued by automatic feeders. You slot the canteen to your thigh and your lunchbox to your hip. Then come the sours. You take yours from an offered tray and bow your head to the issuing fiosal, a gesture of respect that ripples down the line, performed by every labourer before you and every labourer after in turn. The fiosal returns the gesture with a calm, blink-slow acknowledgement, each and every time. You place the tablet on your tongue. It dissolves instantly in a sour-sweet tang. There is no sudden rush, just a gentle unlocking of the chest, a quiet clearing of the sinus and of the mind. Any remnants of fatigue you felt have totally evaporated, replaced by a lucid, focused clarity and a smile on your lips. You find one of the last seats on this tram. You lean back, letting the magnetic hum of the drive vibrate through your body. The ascent is fast. You rise quickly from the cool subterranean caverns, shooting upward through the crust of this new world. The dark rock flashes by, faster and faster through the crystal windows, until at last the tunnel breaks and the light hits you, and it is blinding. As your eyes adjust, you are again greeted by the sight that takes your breath away each cycle. A city in the violent, magnificent process of being born. Skeletal spires of white alloy, resin, and nanocrystalline that pierce the orange dust of terraforming storms. Drones swarm the structures like flies, weaving sheets of material into seamless walls and panels. You watch the glint of twin suns glare off the white towers in the distance, and you feel small. Not the crushing, fearful smallness of the old life, instead the smallness of a brick in the wall or a cog in a great and advanced machine. You have a place here. You have a purpose. It is beautiful, it is bright, and it is good. The Tau Empire has effectively branded itself on a single, seductive, if interestingly familiar promise: unity. For most, this empire is known as the Outlier, one of the few galactic civilizations that won't immediately try to destroy, dismantle, or devour you based purely on largely superficial metrics. Whether that be an unusual number of limbs or eyes, a non-standard ear shape, an irregular number of fingers, or simply just the misfortune of having flesh that either looks very tasty or highly digestible. The Tau are a young, technologically advanced collectivist faction defined by a strong caste system and led by the highly suspect ethereal caste, and made up of a variety of different Xenos breeds who act as integrated client races. Kroot, Vespid, Nikasar, Nagi, and more, all synchronized and united by a single overriding algorithm: the greater good, the Tau Va. This greater good acts as a deeply indoctrinated moral obligation. It demands the prioritization of the society and the ideal over the individual. It expects you to trade all sense of self in exchange for altruism, to sacrifice your comfort, your interests, and your ambition to further the goals of the collective and to bring about a brighter future, even if you are not there to see it. Equally, the greater good asserts that every citizen, every living entity under the Empire's banner, possesses some inherent utility, a unique and specific purpose or role to play that serves the greater good. All who embrace it serve, and all who serve it are served by it, or so the saying goes. This guiding core principle has been designed to allow for the advancement of Tau society, for the Tau themselves, and for all the races and species their civilization encompasses. In practice, this means that the individual is a somewhat disposable asset, something inherently valued beneath the greater needs of the Empire, with the most avid adherents being more than willing to walk into the fire without hesitation, to accept death or sacrifice if it means an advancement, however small, to the greater good, whatever that may mean. Putting aside my own thoughts on this ideal and its implementation, which will be properly explored in a future upload, if you view your own existence and that of your citizenry as capital to be invested, fuel for the engine of the greater good, It is therefore inevitable that you will view the rest of the living galaxy as capital to be acquired. If your life is a resource to be spent, their lives become a resource to be earned and then spent in turn. And to be clear, in this context, when I say spent, I'm not talking about something to be ended, but instead as something to be used, a span of time defined by dedicated labor, service, or contributions rather than immediate sacrifice. So for the Tau, outsiders are not necessarily enemies to be conquered, enslaved, or purged. They are more like wayward children to be shepherded in and brought welcomed back into the fold where possible. This approach is dangerously inclusive. The Tau have integrated everything from mind control worms and sentient gas clouds through to giant four-legged subterranean slugs. In fact, their bureaucratic optimism is to such an extent that it very much lapses into suicidal ignorance on occasion. We have seen them extend the olive branch to the Tyranids. We have seen them try to bring Trazyn the Infinite to the table. Naturally, in both cases, negotiations ended exactly as you would expect, but the attempts themselves speak to a specific kind of innocent and refreshing, if totally delusional, optimism. But this inclusivity, this standing offer of galactic unity, does in fact extend to you, to the Gue'la, to humanity. It is a dangerously effective invitation. We have seen it happen. The dissatisfied, the downtrodden, the disenfranchised, and the desperate, each looking for an alternative. The abandoned and the hopeless, both looking for salvation. The Tau dangle the carrots of hyper-advanced technology, incredible levels of efficiency, strong social cohesion, and a progressive welcoming society. They bring a stated dedication to the pursuit and achievement of freedom, peace, and harmony. Put this list of benefits up against the offerings of the stalling, rusted machine that is the Imperium, and there is little debate to be had for the average Joe. The Tau are promising free water to people dying of thirst. But we have to ask all the same, is life for the average human in the Tau Empire actually what they promise? Is it a genuine escape from dystopia, or is life under the Tau Empire just a better lit version of it? Look, the sales pitch is strong. I'm not shocked to hear people say that they would go out of their way to join the Tau, as is well said in Broken Sword by Guy Haley. I can understand the temptation the Tau present. The watercast need nothing more than half-meant promises of freedom. On many worlds long forgotten, this would be enough to sway the hearts of men. If we are honest, and if we put ourselves in the perspective of the average Imperial citizen, who, if we are to work with the stereotypes, spends a lifetime working in sweltering manufactoria, sleeping in rusted pipes fighting off rats the size of dogs, or who is thrown into the meat grinder of a war that is entirely meaningless, we can see that the Tau are indeed a glowing option in comparison. And the material reality backs it up. It is true, the Tau are technologically hyper-advanced. In nearly every practical domain, weaponry, armor, medicine infrastructure, the gulf between their standard of living and the Imperium's is clear. And it is not just a case of material abundance either, but an abundance marked by refinement, reliability, and superior quality. Gorn was my temperamental hand-me-down lasgun. We had pulse carbines, weapons worth a damn, and armor. Plating that actually might just conceivably stop a shot. And the comms, Vox equipment to make a space marine envious, for me. Those toys were mighty tempting to a lot of us. Some of my squad had come over precisely because they were hungry for Tau tech, or because they were afraid of it. Where Imperial equipment is usually heavy, blocky, cheap, or heirloomed, Tau equipment is quality. Their designs are modular, repairable, and built for rapid iteration. Their science operates without the anchor of mysticism, delivering repeatable outcomes instead of laboured results. And all of this translates to a higher standard of living for their populace. From what we can see from the source material, loyal, dedicated, and proud Gue'la have the opportunity to live out good, healthy lives. This quote by Jaden Calling from Broken Sword describes it well and gives us a lot to draw out. I remember when Hinks got it. I went to see his widow a few days ago. Nice place she's got now. Good support from the Sept authorities. Hinks's kids are growing up to be model citizens. His boy says he wants to go into the Gue'la auxiliaries like his uncle Jathan. He's a healthy lad, tall and strong. I can't help think what kind of life he'd have back on Gorman's Fast. Probably be half blind from working in the gossamer plants, or dead. And yet there he is, cared for and fed and as strong as an amble calf. Remarkable. I'm still waiting for the catch. Let's look at what is effectively being offered here. Social security. Good support from the Sept authorities implies a functioning welfare state, a pension system for veteran families, presumably with housing assistance, a society that values the family and props it up when it is torn apart. The widow isn't forced into a workhouse or left to fend for her family on the streets. She has a new nice place with well-off children, which leads me neatly to the next point. Public health. Hinks's children are described as healthy, fed, and as strong as an amble calf. This implies access to nutrition, vitamins, and medicine that is totally unobtainable for the average Imperial. And that contrast is made pretty clear in the same quote. Back on Gorman's Fast, a former Imperial world, Hinks's kid would be half blind or dead by now. Here, in Tau society, he is a physically thriving model citizen with a bright future ahead. Lastly, and maybe the most interesting point to be pulled out here, is social mobility. The quote sets out that Hinks's kid has a choice. He wants to join the auxiliaries like his uncle. He isn't being press-ganged, conscripted, or voluntold. He is instead choosing to actively aspire to a military career. The Tau system, for all its rigid caste structures, seemingly offers the human populace a very real degree of agency. And I want to build on this last point a bit more. The human population of the Tau Empire are not just military assets to serve as auxiliaries that bolster the Tau's fighting force. Whether through aptitude tests, psychological screenings, honest preference, or whatever the process may be, humans perform a wide variety of roles across the Empire, from diplomats and officials to labourers, bodyguards, soldiers, and indeed, on the rare occasion, low-level leaders. So, in an already advanced, multi-planetary, diverse society, we know that humans can receive social support, accommodation that is considered nice, so presumably roomy, well-lit, well-located, and safe places, with access to food, vitamins, and medicine, and they have the ability to, at the very least, influence their position or purpose in society. We also know that client races have the freedom to hold on to remnant aspects of their respective cultures, to a certain extent, and within reason, of course. We know there are marriages and unions, families and family units, fresh, quality, and human-compatible food. Not too bad in the grand scheme of things, right? Sure. But as nice and idyllic as this all sounds, there are a few things we must consider, and more details to explore before we can definitively claim that this constitutes the complete understanding of the average Tau Gue'la's life. To look back on that quote again from Broken Sword, which is widely praised as being one of, if not the best source for insight into Gue'la life with a more critical outlook, Hinks's widow is a clear high-value propaganda asset for the Tau. She represents the social contract of the greater good in its most tangible form. Die for us and in service to our ideal, and your people will be looked after. Maintaining the widow's lifestyle is a safe investment for Tau authorities. It keeps the other humans, men like Calling, fighting harder and doubting less. The overhead on housing and food is negligible compared to the return on investment for the Tau, not just in terms of morale and propaganda among the human population, but also through a supported family unit where the healthy, strong children, model citizens all, are preparing themselves for a life in the Gue'la auxiliaries. Hinks's kids are sure to go on and become the next generation of troops, eager to expand the borders and influence of the Tau as some of its most passionate and determined fighters. We should also not assume that this level of support and generosity by Tau authorities extends to the more unproductive and lower value assets. The elderly who have no children or military connection, the infirm and disabled who cannot work effectively or reproduce, or the people who still have gnawing doubts about the ideology of their new society. In fact, for those people, those who are reluctant to fully embrace the Tau of R and who stubbornly ask questions and cling to supposedly primitive concepts, they can expect to actually receive a very different kind of government support. They won't call it imprisonment because that would imply some degree of malice or political control. Instead, the reluctant and slow to learn, as identified through invasive monitoring strategies or through the investigation of the Tau Thought Police, the Edification Corps, receive support in the form of mandatory and highly secured gendered re-education camps and programs. Places that allegedly turn their prisoners into drooling dogs once their re-education has been completed. The more I learn of the Tau, the more I find that they treat ideological resistance as some sort of mental illness, some glitch or deviation that needs troubleshooting or resetting. These facilities are designed to correct that error. Through a program of isolation, psychotherapy, and likely chemical adjustment, the state assists you in overcoming your confusion. They will dismantle your previous worldview piece by piece until the pure logic of the unassailable Tau Va is the only thing left that makes sense, and likely the only thing you will ever think about again. But for those whose confusion proves to be terminal, for those who cannot be debugged, or worse, those who actively oppose the system, well, human transgressors against the greater good are not publicly executed, as is the imperial way, for the Tau see no need to publicize the fates of those who oppose them. Instead, such Gue'la simply disappear, and it is the way of the greater good to convince oneself that they never existed at all. Mandatory brainwashing for those who disagree, disappearance for those who cannot conform. Believe it or not, these are only the stopgap measures, reactive plays to actively monitor, correct, and delete flawed units. The Watercast is also playing the long game. They understand that while you can break a stubborn human's will and mind, it is far more effective to simply design a human who lacks that stubborn nature in the first place. There is no standard issue opinion on the Gue'la. The Tau Empire is large, and a human sympathizer on a core world will look at you very differently than a hardened commander dealing with an encroaching imperial armada. That said, in the eyes of the Tau, humanity is a logistical nightmare. They are loud, superstitious, and dangerously stupid. The biological incompatibility is so profound that you could not even effectively speak to the Tau without embarrassing yourself, your flat, clumsy tongue forever struggling with the subtleties of their language, often forcing dedicated defectors to undergo invasive vocal cord surgery just to communicate without sounding like a barking dog. Combine this incompatibility with the earlier mentioned stubborn mindset, and many will begin to ask, how long until our best characteristics are bred true like they are in Groks and in Tau? The Tau need obedient workers and soldiers and stable populations. It is strongly hinted that authorities are identifying those humans who display high malleability, ensuring those lineages flourish and reproduce, while the troublesome bloodlines are naturally or artificially removed from the gene pool. There are accounts of human populations being regularly sterilized to prevent growth, to prevent populations from outstretching Tau methods of control, or just to be stunted altogether. The Empire proactively caps the herd size to ensure that it remains manageable, likely aiming to breed a version of humanity where compliance and contentment is a genetic default. They do it with their own race, so why not with yours? I wanted to provide such viewpoints to set the scene into the less palatable aspects of the Tau Empire. We need to look past the clean, shiny veneer of Tau society to properly understand it. I'm sorry to say that we are not looking at a utopia here. We are looking at a different kind of dystopia. If the Imperium embodies the Orwellian fragments found on Terra, then the Tau represent the Huxleyan texts. We are looking at a Brave New World scenario, where the cage is made of carefully engineered contentment. In the Tau, we see a regime that systematically dismantles the individual's ability to dissent, whether through the presence and threat of political police, the trauma of re-education camps, the disappearance of dissidents, the real threat of sterilization, or the potential generational editing of the gene pool. And this is not to mention the suspect use of the Nagi, literal sentient mind control worms, and the Tau's synaptic adjudicators capable of mind ripping and memory overlay, or the rumoured powers of pheromonal control available to the ethereals. Together, these symptoms reveal an extremely low trust society, where the government views large swathes of its own population with distrust, and something that must be constantly monitored, educated, and steered. So to bring this all back to the key point of this video, what does this information actually mean for the life of the average Gue'la in Tau society? If you are the average Gue'la, not necessarily an auxiliary, if you work your shift, serve the greater good, and respect the ethereals, your life will be okay. You will have what you need, you will be healthy, you will have a home, you will have functioning technology, you will be free to start a family that will be supported in turn, you will have purpose in life, and you will have a government that wants you alive, as long as you are loyal, productive, and altruistic. But for all the technological and material improvements you will receive, you will remain forever living in a fishbowl. You will exist behind glass, constantly observed by giant distorted eyes that view you with a mixture of pity and caution. There will be many who will forever distrust you, many who will always see you as a backward savage, useful only for your labor or for your ability to breed the next generation of more docile, genetically predictable followers. To survive here, you must trade privacy for security. You must offer total transparency to a system that offers you none in return. You must accept that your purpose may not be your own to define. Choose to forget the concepts of individualism and self-empowerment, and in turn you will have a full belly, a warm bed, and a safe home. But you will lose the freedom of your mind. So you have to ask yourself, is a safe, prosperous civilization worth the death of individual choice? Is the safety of the zoo worth the price of the cage? I don't know. And that is the scary part. Anyway, thanks for watching. Dystopian Chimp out.